Hey guys, Frightener22 here, and this is Saturday Night Movie Drive-In. This week we're actually going to be delving into a subgenre of films that I haven't touched before in any of my reviews ever on my YouTube channel. That's right, we're going to be taking a look at some Italian horror. I didn't want people to think that I didn't dig this subgenre by any means, so I figured that this subgenre was just way overdue, so looking across the racks of, my infamous and almost endless DVD collection, I picked upon, one that sticks out in a lot of people's minds when they think about the Italian horror subgenre. So we're going to be taking a look at 1980's City of the Living Dead. This film was directed by Lucio Fulci, and that name is really familiar to people that really are hardcore and into this subgenre. He directed other films such as The Beyond, Zombie, Cat in the Brain, some pretty solid stuff in his work, but City of the Living Dead is one that people regard as one of his best. Now, the plot of this film it opens up actually with a priest offing himself. I can't think of a better opening to a horror movie, just how fucked up, and it really is literally that. It's establishing shots of a graveyard, and then a priest, a depressed-looking priest, just wrangles up a rope to a tree and fucking hangs himself, so, way to go. So from that point on, the clergyman's suicide basically opens up the gates of hell, so when the gates of hell are erupting, who else do you think are gonna put an end to it? Why, a psychic and a reporter, of course. Why the hell not? The Ghostbusters weren't available, so they got a psychic and a reporter to go ahead and, put the cap on the gates of hell opening up. So basically, it's up to these two people, along with other characters that are associated with the psychic and the reporter. They tag along, and it's pretty much their duty to stop it before, basically hell takes over the entire planet. When I started this movie, I think, for the sake of this review, this was actually the second time that I ever watched City of the Living Dead, and this time I feel like I was a little bit more, paying attention. I was a little bit more awake, because the last time I do remember that I was pretty delirious, and, it's kind of a fucked up movie to watch, especially when you're a little delirious and tired, because it's very hallucinogenic. There's a lot of trippy images, trippy filmmaking, and early on, being way more, awake this time around and paying way more attention to it, I quickly pegged this film for me that it was definitely going to be a film that was going to be way more style over substance. And that necessarily isn't a bad thing, it's just the way that it kind of worked out, and it's like as I was saying before, this is a very stylistic movie. There's a lot of hallucinogenic, images in it. Fulci just does a really good job with, picking at things that really will get underneath your skin, and that's really the saving grace for this film for me. There is just so many warped, gory, balls-to-the-wall images in this film. For instance, when the priest actually offs himself, he kind of begins stalking victims, and every time that the females in this film particularly see the priest, they start to bleed from their eyes, like crying blood, which is an awesome image. I mean, the first time that I saw it grace the screen, I thought it was awesome. I loved that imagery. I don't know what it was, but it was just so... It was just so creepy and just so haunting, and it just really sticks. It's just like one of those cemented images that every time that I think of City of the Living Dead now, it's impossible to hear that title and not just think about, like, the bloody teardrops. So, in addition to that, there's one really memorable scene in it that's just so kick-ass, and the priest is stalking a girl, and of course the bloody teardrops happen, but then she begins to, like, regurgitate her entire, her stomach and all of her organs through her mouth. It is the sickest shit ever. It's something that only fucking Italians would do in their horror movies, but it kicks so much ass, and it was just so unbelievable. It was just, like, fucking endless. Like, I just kept watching in awe just to see how many organs I could kind of spot out that she was actually, like, spewing out of her mouth. It was fucking unreal. But, it's scenes like that really depict, the gore and just, crank that shit up to 11. It pays off incredibly in this film because, it kind of, as far as a story and stuff like that, it kind of bored me. The characters overall were nothing memorable, but I guess that kind of harks back to that whole style over substance comment that I made earlier. It's just that there's really nobody memorable in it that I really gave too much of a shit about. I thought that the guy that played the reporter, who actually had a role in Pieces as well, I really liked him. I thought that he was, he had a very strong, you know, appearance on screen. I kind of liked his character, but everybody else that surrounded him, just, I didn't really care about, and I was kind of, with each scene as it rolled on, I was just found myself more and more looking forward to more gore and just seeing more, you know, grisly images. So this certainly wasn't a movie that I was glued to the screen because the story was just so intriguing and I couldn't, like, help myself to, like, you know, pulling my hair out as to what would happen next. I just really wanted to bypass the bullshit and get to the gore, but I've had conversations with people about Italian horror and this film in general, and I think that with, you know, a good portion of Italian horrors, specifically City of the Living Dead, it's something that's somewhat of an acquired taste. Some people might love it, some people might hate it, or, you know, over time or repeated viewings, I might get a little bit more out of it, but like I said, this was, you know, technically the second time that I've seen it, and it's not necessarily a bad movie, it's just something that didn't really whet my appetite as much as I thought it was going to, if that makes any sense. Even at the end, when they're, the reporter and the psychic and, like, you know, their whole fucking Mystery Inc. gang of characters are trying to put a, you know, an end and a close to the gates of hell. I kind of was expecting a little bit more, since all the dead people in the world are rising from the gate, from their graves. I kind of expected just a little bit more in the payoff, but, you know, for what they had, the makeup effects looked great, the gore was awesome. There's another really, really memorable scene of two characters getting into an altercation, and one of them puts his face through a power drill, and the power drill goes through one cheek, right out the other, and it's really fucking cool. I mean, like, I just, for a brief second, I kind of thought that the guy was going to get away for one reason or another, but just closer and closer that drill got, and then it just fucking charred through the skin and went all the way out, blood everywhere, screaming. It was really cool, so, that's really the thing that I really did appreciate and dig a lot about City of the Living Dead. If there's one thing that Fulci got right, you know, was certainly a way to push the envelope with the gore factor. Now, like I said, City of the Living Dead isn't necessarily a bad movie. I'm sure people are gonna shit on my review for me not, you know, hailing it and loving it and stuff like that, but it's not that I don't even, it's not that I, like, have a distaste for Italian horror. On the contrary, you know, after sitting down and watching, like, The Beyond and Cat in the Brain, I actually prefer those two movies over City of the Living Dead. I love the shit out of The Beyond, and I, you know, wouldn't be surprised to see that pop up in a future review somewhere down the line. But, yeah, as far as Italian horror, City of the Living Dead just kinda fell a little bit off the map for me. Great gore effects, really grisly, hallucinogenic, trippy images that only Italians could get away with, but, as far as a story and interesting characters, not so much. Fulci's definitely done a little bit better. Well, guys, that's all I got for you this week. Be sure to tune in next Saturday for yet another installment of Saturday Night Movie Drive-In, where I will be reviewing 1977's Kingdom of the Spiders, another really cool flick starring William Shatner from Star Trek, Captain Kirk himself. So, all that said, guys, thanks again for tuning in. This is Frightener22.